Next, we go to the point of view in a passage. That is the point of view from which it's written. When a narrator writes it, is he writing it from his first person point of view? Is he using the term you? Or is it a general kind of passage, third person? So point of view is the perspective of the person or the position of the narrator. The three different points of view are, of course, the first person, where you'll see the use of the word I, or sometimes even we. Second person, you'll see the word you a lot. And third person, neither I nor you, which means it's in the third person point of view. So examples. More research is needed to determine how stress contributes to heart disease, the leading killer of Americans. But stress may affect behaviors and factors that increase heart disease risk: high blood pressure and cholesterol levels, smoking, physical inactivity, and overeating. Some people may choose to drink too much. So that's exactly the indication. Some people may, it's the third person. In fact, maybe people are not even mentioned there. You're talking about plants or animals or things, planets. Those will all be in the third person. On the other hand, within the same, another part of the passage talks like this: your body's response to stress may be a headache, back pain, or stomach cramps. So sometimes you will see a shift in point of view within the same passage. Now they're saying your body's reaction may be different. Stress can also zap your energy, wreak havoc on your sleep, and make you feel cranky, forgetful, and out of control. A stressful situation sets off a chain of events. Your body will do this, your body. So, see how there is a shift. So, some people, third person, your second person. So, a question may be something like this: which choice best describes the shift that occurs in line 50? Now, so that we'll reach around line 50. And on that day, I showed second wife the fake pearl necklace she had given me and crushed it under my foot. And on that day, second wife's hair began to turn white. And on that day, I learned to shout. My mother, she suffered, she lost her face and tried to hide it. She found only greater misery and finally could not hide that. There's nothing more to say. Sorry, there's nothing more to understand. That was China. That was what people did back then. So, see how it was talking about her mother, and now things have shifted. That was China. That was what people did back then. They had no choice. They could not speak up, they could not run away. That was their fate. So, what is the shift that occurs in line 50? Is it a criticism of a situation to a recognition of its significance? No. Is it a chronicle of an incident? Okay, there was a chronicle of an incident. To description of a parallel situation, I didn't see that. A personal reaction, okay, it wasn't a personal reaction. It was talking about what was happening during her mother's death. So it wasn't a personal reaction, and to a discussion of a general concern, that definitely not. And D, an extract from a memoir to the relating of a generalization. Extract from a memoir is, yes, her mother's death, and then a generalization about people of China. Therefore, D would be the answer. Point of view or perspective questions on the SAT also may ask about the relationship of the author to the subject matter of the passage. So what they can do is they'll ask you whether the author is directly involved with any part of the passage. Is he doing the experiments, or is he watching them, or whatever, if it's a science passage, or if he's the narrator, or is he merely an observer? Now, of course, there are the two types where there's a fiction passage, which of course sometimes it can be a narrational passage where the author could be the writing in the first person. But most authors of the science and social science passages will be informed observers. They would be interested in their subject, and they would have a good deal of knowledge about the subject. So these are the two kind of situations. Fiction passages and excerpts of speeches could have the first person, and where they are actively involved in it. The best way to describe the point of view from which the passage is written, this is what the passage would look, the question would look like. The best way to describe the point of view from which the passage is written. Right, let's read the passage first. The stickiness clung to her body. They could not remove the poison, and so she died 2 days before the new year. They laid her on a wooden board in the hallway. She wore funeral clothes far richer than those she had worn in her life. Silk undergarments to keep her warm, without the heavy burden of a fur coat, a silk gown sewn with gold thread, a headdress of gold and lapis and jade, and two delicate slippers with the softest leather soles and two giant pearls on each toe to light her way to nirvana. Seeing her this last time, I threw myself on her body and she opened her eyes slowly. I was not scared. I knew she could see me and what she had finally done. I shut her eyes with my fingers and told her with my heart, I can see the truth too. I am strong too. Because we both knew this, that on the third day after someone dies, the soul comes back to settle scores. In my mother's case, the mother was the one who had just died, this would be the first day of the Lunar New Year. And because it is the New Year, all debts must be paid, or disaster and misfortune will follow. So on that day, Wu Sing, fearful of my mother's vengeful spirit, wore the coarsest of white cotton mourning clothes. He promised her visiting ghost that he would raise Xiaodi and me as his honored children. He promised to revere her as if she had been first wife, his only wife. What does this much tell you about the perspective of the author? We do know that her mother has died. She is talking much later, and she is still a child because it's talking about he would raise Xiaodi and me. That is, the father would raise them as his honored children. So they are still very young. So if I were to put this much together and leave it aside for reference against my answer options, I would do something like this. In this story, the daughter remembers her childhood, the time around her mother's death. Use this to answer my question. Describe the point of view from which the passage is written. So we can say that. Is it a daughter describing the events of a memorable occasion in her adult life? Two things wrong. It's not the adult life. It's not a memorable occasion. The death of a mother. So A is out. Mother describing the events following the loss of her daughter. That's absurd. Out. Daughter remembering her visit to her mother in her early adult life. No. Again, not adult life. So easy. Is it D? Always don't just pick D and move on. Make sure you read it. Daughter remembering the events following the loss of her mother. Very good. Yes, that would be my answer. Okay. Yet another type of point of view question will ask you to determine the relationship of the author of a science or social science passage to the subject of the passage. Now here it's important, pay attention. In the passage, is there a use or a lack of use of the pronouns I and we? Most authors are knowledgeable about the subject they write, but that doesn't mean that they're directly involved. So unless you see the words I or we, you can more or less be sure he's an interested observer. The author would be an interested observer. Okay, so the question would be something like this. This passage is written from the perspective of someone who is, let's read the passage. Every weekend during soccer season in Britain, security personnel find them in stadiums tapping furiously at their phones or talking non-stop into a mic. Mysterious customers, often wearing hoodies to conceal earpieces and their identity. While focused with unwavering intensity on the action of the game, they show none of the engagement and excitement of the ordinary fans around them. So far, he's used the word they, and we still don't know who the they are. Now, of course, they tell you the unofficial data scouts or data thieves, depending on who's describing them, are quickly ejected once they're discovered. Why are they ejected? The fleeting data they are collecting, the minutiae of what is happening in the game, is the lifeblood of sports betting, perhaps the most crucial and valuable element of the entire industry. If gambling operators are to monetize sports betting fully, they have to offer wagers on far more than the outcomes of the games. Data on second-by-second action, exactly when a goal is scored, where it landed in the net, who had the assist, creates manifold betting opportunities. And so these unofficial data scouts are sitting there and giving out this information so that the betting can happen for a million things during the course of the match. Right? So let me look at the answer options. It's written from the perspective of someone who is it actively involved in sport betting? No, because he doesn't say that I have done this betting. So actively involved, you'd all be suspicious unless you see the word I or we. So it's out. Opposed to the activities of data scouts during soccer matches. He seems to be just reporting about it. He's not opposed to it out. Familiar with the world of betting that goes on during soccer matches? Could be the answer. I would always read D before choosing C. Used by betting syndicates to mine data from the soccer field. Is he one of those? The unofficial data scouts? He's not one of them because he wouldn't be saying they. So D is out. C is the answer.